Okay, I call this 19th meeting of the 12th Undergraduate Senate to order. Okay, I'm going to begin by calling the roll. Senator Pintar. Here. Senator Lickstein. Here. Senator Gale. Senator Rogers.
Here. Bye, Rob.
Senator Zitzman.
Here.
Senator Bardo. Senator Pugh.
Here.
Senator Kenna.
Here.
Senator Conover. Here. Senator Grant. Senator Adeli. Here. Senator Smith. Here. Senator Morrow. Senator Borowski. Senator Lepore. Senator Spivak. Senator Sheehan. Senator Zengi.
Here.
Okay. Okay, so we have 10 out of 18, which is quorum. Okay, so we're going to move on to the adoption of the agenda. Is there any discussion on the agenda? Yes.
Can we switch the order of the reports and Will's gonna be late.
Okay.
So can we just put him under?
Yeah. That is what she does.
A second.
Sweet.
Is it to move it after new business?
He should be here. He's in meeting until like.
That's good.
So he should.
Or do you want to put him?
Do after new business.
Can you put him after new business?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, any other discussion on the agenda? Okay, the agenda is going to be adopted without objection. Is there any discussion on the minutes from the 18th meeting? You guys got these in their email. No discussion? Okay, the minutes are going to be adopted without objection. Now moving into a period of public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak at this time? Sweet. Okay, we're going to move on to reports from committees. Senator Lickstein, you got a report for the Finance Committee.
Is it acceptable if I report from here?
Yeah, you can stay. You can say.
Okay. Hey guys. Good morning. I hope everyone's having a great Sunday. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Haley, and I am the chair of the Special Committee on Finance. And I just kind of wanted to update everybody and like specifically have it in the minutes about what's been going on. So normally this is the time that the fall budget reallocation process would start. So I want to give you kind of a timeline of what that normally looks like and then explain to everyone what's happening this year since it's a little different. So normally what would happen is over the summer, the school realizes that there's more money to be given to the budget than what was originally given in the spring. And this happens every year just because they always give us a very conservative estimate since they don't have final enrollment numbers yet. And the budget that we have is based off of the student activity fee. So all of the budget process that we did in the spring for this school year was based off of that like conservative estimate. And so then they give us a new number and then we start to meet with the executives and the speaker and people on SA to figure out exactly what the new number is for the fall and like go through the same process essentially that we do in the spring for reallocating for any organizations that we gave budget cuts to or just budgets that they felt like aren't going to be enough after they've created their schedule of events for the school year. But this year there is not much larger of a budget for the fall that we've seen in the past, and the conservative estimate is like pretty close to how much money we actually have. So what we're going to do this year is in lieu of making a fall budget or allocation process, we have worked with SA to make sure that money is available on a case-to-case basis for these organizations. So instead of running a complete reallocation process, if an organization needs money to be reallocated, they can submit a request and we can work on it with them, but we're not going to meet with every organization and run it as we normally do. But the fall allocation process is used as a really good way for us to be transparent with the student body about where their money is going. It's really great for incoming freshmen normally because we advertise what the student activity fee is for and like what it is that they're funding because they're not there in the spring for the budget allocations, which are normally like transparent and public for everyone, not as discussed. but we try to make sure that the fall is a really great way to explain where everyone's student activity fee money is going to. So since we're not doing that, we just need to make sure as a Senate, and I'm going to work with the committee and the comptroller to just make sure that whenever we do make these reallocations, that they're really public, and we're still super transparent with the student body. So I just want to make sure you guys are all up to date on that, since normally the allocation process would start like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, and it's not happening. Yeah.
Any questions for the chair of the finance committee?
Thank you, guys.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to new business and Bill 1617-023. The clerk will read the legislation by number and title.
Bill 1617-023, a bill to create the Special Committee on Diversity and Inclusion.
Thank you.
Okay, would one of the co-sponsors or both of you guys like to speak?
Sure, I'll speak on it. So hopefully you guys took a look at it in the meeting packet that the speaker sent out 2 or 3 days ago. Basically, it's very simple. Right now, we have an ad hoc committee on diversity and inclusion, which means that it expires at the end of the session, and it is up to the next speaker or any consecutive speaker to establish that or reestablish ad hoc committees. But we thought that it is a good policy initiative, I guess, for the student government Senate specifically to establish a reoccurring permanent committee on diversity and inclusion based on 1, we're allowed to make as many special committees as we want, and 2, we don't have to worry about a speaker not wanting, not thinking about making another diversity and inclusion committee, because by putting it in the bylaws, we have to establish it automatically. And then 3, I was talking to Yami Payano. She was a senator last year. She works in President Dunson's cabinet right now, and she was talking about how President Burwell has a established committee on diversity and inclusion. So I felt like it'd be good to also have the Senate sort of mirror that and have a permanent kind of committee. This is only for first reading, so personally, I think it's better to just let it go through first reading, let CRP look at it next week, and then let the full Senate look at it, since it's not going to be actually established until next session. But if other senators want to consider the changes now, you can. I'm totally open to whatever the Senate wants to do. So,
Senator Pintar, go ahead.
Off of that, I know that last time Yami wanted to bring up something like this bill to make diversity and inclusion a standing committee. There's a lot of debate over whether that would jeopardize or whether it was a good idea to kind of have a cutoff of how many people can participate in the committee. Well, if it's in a special committee, you can still, whoever wants to come in can still come in. But then diversity and inclusion gets to be in CRP and can also look at other legislation as well and just participate more in the process, which I think could be really helpful to our.
Okay, are there any questions for the co-sponsors? Any questions? Okay, seeing no questions, this bill is going to be referred to the Committee on Rules and Privileges. Sweet. Okay, moving on to Bill 1617-024. The clerk will refer the legislation by number and title.
Bill 1617-024, a bill to improve physical accessibility on campus.
Okay, you can speak if you'd like to.
Yes, thank you. So I hope everybody looked at the bill, but what it does is pretty simple. It identifies a bunch of areas of really easily fixable, for the most part, really easily fixable physical flaws for campus, either with a building or something near a building that hamper physical accessibility for anybody with mobility challenges. If you're in a wheelchair, if you have any neurological damage or whatever, what have you, all those things prevent you from using the campus to its fullest extent. So this bill directs President Dunston to contact the relevant university administrators, similar to Bill 1617-015, which was about the opioid medication, and President Dumpson gave us a report about that last week. So it's the same skeleton of language, and I put in accessibility content. I feel like this bill has a better, it's better designed to actually do something as opposed to a lot of other just general advocating for campus accessibility, because I feel like what would normally happen is that if the Senate passed a resolution saying we want more accessibility, the university would say, oh yeah, we know about that, and just put it back at the end of the pile. But since this identifies a lot of specific things that the university might not know about, it could push that forward a little bit. A lot of this, like I said during my confirmation hearing, is based on an experience I had last year working on a project called Access AU. That's where I got a lot of this information about the problems on campus. We spoke to students and alumni who used wheelchairs, and this past week I've been in contact with the registrar about some of the class information, the registrar's office, and I had a meeting with Lindsay Northup-Moore, who is the Director of Disability Services, and the woman who I believe was her assistant. And I also incorporated some of the stuff I learned from that meeting into this bill. So that is that. I think that's all I have to say.
Awesome. Are there any questions for the sponsor of this legislation? No questions? Okay, so this bill is going to be sent to the Committee on Student Advocacy. Okay, sweet. Now we can move on to reports from officers. Will, if you want to come up.
Thank you.
Also, I made you a
promise.
nameplate so you
What?
can have it.
Oh, there's a nameplate?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. No, I'm excited. My excited voice, I think I was born with an excited voice that sounds sarcastic, but, but I mean it. I'm actually really excited. This is cool. Okay. I don't know, we'll just do like a little.
Yeah, you don't have to use it.
Well, look, there we go. Now it's backwards, but oh, okay. So anyways, oh, I have a report. You care if I share with you really quickly?
Yeah,
that
no, of
presentation?
course.
I'm gonna keep this really brief. I know I took like an hour of your life last time. So my goal is brevity, but I'm excited because I have an important announcement, a policy development, to discuss with all of you. This is something that I had initially intended to, similar to what I did last year. I think it's important that I present information to you that we're working on. It's your job, of course, to hold departments accountable, so that's what I try to do. I had planned to submit this information as like a what we're going to do kind of thing, but then as you will see, we got very lucky, and things, I'll just say, as I'll explain, things worked out better than I could have hoped. So good news all around. Okay, here. Speaker is good at AOC.org. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. That's a great bill, by the way. Physical or accessible to buildings. That's very important. So I appreciate you writing that. Yeah, it's a big issue. That to me should not be an issue because we're technically violating federal. I'm not taking responsibility. The school is violating federal law. So I mean, like, what EQB? What?
Oh yeah.
Yes. And you cannot. What do you say? It smells bad. Yeah, it's disgusting, and you cannot enter it if you cannot use stairs. It's physically impossible. So ridiculous. Should be condemned. So good. Thank you. Okay. Oh yeah, no hurry.
Okay.
Oh, you know.
No, I know how to do it. It's just like I just haven't used a PC. And,
Yeah.
Ridiculous sometimes. Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Like Secretary Schneider, I'm enjoying the new slide format. So I'm trying to spice it up. Okay. So policy report on the ROTC, students in the ROTC. Okay. So, but before we start, I just want to let all of you know that I'm the person in President Dumpson's cabinet who's leading up that student government effort on supporting students and student organizations working for the relief for natural disasters. I just wanted to make sure that all of you knew that something was happening. I'm going to have a lot more information this week about specifically what is happening. But I'm working with the project management team, which is in the president's cabinet, to make that happen. I'm also working with a couple of university departments. My emphasis, of course, is to work with student organizations and student groups, or students individually. But also, if any of you would like to join, if you know students that I should be talking to, groups that I should be talking to, please let me know. I would love more help. The more the merrier. Haley and I are working on it together right now. So please let me know. That would be great. What I can say is that the emphasis is not going to be to do our own thing, to like start our own fundraiser. I don't think that's appropriate at this point. There are so many existing ways on campus, whether it's through the university or, which I think is even more awesome, through student groups that have already started raising money with charities that mean a lot to them. I think that is more meaningful, you know. So what we're going to do is our strategy will surround ways to like enhance those existing abilities, or if someone is looking to start something, to help them start it. Okay, so now onto what is actually happening. Go ahead. Thanks, Maddie. So this is a policy position that we've been thinking about for a while. We started thinking about it in the spring, and then it really happened more seriously over the summer. And the sort of gist is this. So I'm sure a lot of you know about priority registration for classes. Some of you maybe get priority registration. It is given to students for a number of reasons, but often it relates to your like status at the university. So maybe you're a student athlete, maybe you're an AU honors, and so by default there are built-in opportunities for you to get priority registration. Or you are working with ASAC, and as a result of one of the accommodations you receive for a learning disability or whatever you have, you get priority registration. The way it physically works, just so you know, I didn't know this one a couple of years ago. So because registration is based off of credit hours, your registration time is determined by how many credits you have. They will give students a credit boost during priority registration. So this doesn't actually mean that you graduate with extra credits, but for example, if you are a member AU, let me put it this way, if you're in AU honors, you get a 10 credit bump. So if you're a fall freshman registering for your spring classes, and you took 15 credits, and you didn't come in with any APs or whatever, if you're in honors, you probably did, but whatever, you would have 20 credit hours for the purposes of scheduling. So you'd register sooner than your non-AU honors counterparts. So if you hit the next little button. So, I love the images. So we believe that this should be extended to students who are in ROTC. And so I'll explain our rationale in a minute, but essentially the university has in the past chosen new groups to expand some level of priority registration to. And for the past couple of months, we've been working on a proposal and working with the school on negotiating it on why that should be extended to members of ROTC. So next. So basically our argument is this. We think that any student who has a substantial barrier to controlling their schedule, and that barrier exists because of their involvement in a university recognized organization, particularly involvement that relates to your financial, your ability to financially afford this university, that priority registration should be extended to you. And so a great example of that is AU honors or student athletes. If you're a student athlete, you have set training times. You have times when you're going to be traveling for games. That schedule is public. A lot of students are here, at least in part, because of money they receive as a result of being a student athlete, a scholarship that assists them in being here. So even if they wanted to, if they wanted more freedom to have control of their schedule, they really can't, because leaving the soccer team or whatever risks their ability to remain at the university. I would make the case, and we make the case, that a very similar situation exists with members of ROTC. So student members of ROTC have set times when they do physical training, have set times when they do sort of education meetings. I don't know how many of you know, but for DC, at least with our AU platoon, ROTC is based off of Georgetown, so a lot of what they do has to take place off campus because it's headquartered there. I would say I can confidently say every single student received in ROTC received some level of aid from the military as a result of their membership to ROTC. It's oftentimes substantial amount of aid that would be the removal of which, the loss of which would be detrimental to their ability to remain at AU. And because they don't have control over that scheduling component, they have trainings when they have trainings. You know, a lot of it means that they can't take earlier classes because they're doing stuff early in the morning. They are presented with this difficulty, and they have no sort of recourse to address it. They've never been extended priority registration in the past. We've attempted to do, well, we haven't, but student government has as a collective attempted to do so many times in the past, but it's never really gotten anywhere. So we decided that it was appropriate to make the case now. Of course, we wanted to work with RTC. So we have a staff member on our senior staff, Mike Makovic, who's also on the RTC. So we used him to liaison directly with members of the RTC. We also talked with a couple of other platoons at different universities that have priority registration, like at Georgetown, to assist or to sort of substantiate our report as we prepared our report. We had one meeting with, 2 meetings with Dr. Ah over the summer where we outlined our RTC priority registration as one of our policy goals, just to sort of get it on the table, get the ball moving. And then negotiations happen with the registrar's office. I don't like the word negotiations. It sounds so like business formal, but like conversations with members of the registrar's office, explaining our position, why we think it's important. A preliminary report was, I would call it a memo, really, was drafted. I'm going to send it to all of you, so it'll be sent to the Senate. And we would have put together a more substantial report like we did with the bias-related incidents report. But if you go to the next slide, I'm excited to say I don't need to be writing any long report because the school has already agreed to accept the terms of our proposal. Again, that sounds so formal, the terms, but to accept our proposal and offer the same level of a credit bump as AU honors, so that 10 credit bump to members of ROTC. I'm more excited to say that it will apply semi-immediately. And so as soon as registration starts for the spring 2018, this policy will be in effect. So ROTC students will receive the credit bump. The real challenge that's left, if you go to the last slide, this is pretty fast. Okay, I didn't talk too long. Nice. Okay, is just making sure that we communicate this to the student members of ROTC. Of course, the university will. Like that's their intention and that's their plan. But on our end, we want to do sort of our due diligence to make sure, no matter what, that they get this information. So I put you guys up here if you're interested. I would be more than happy. I would love to work with the Senate on sort of disseminating this information, working with them one-on-one. If you're interested, please let me know. If other senators who aren't here might be interested, let them know to contact me. And then, of course, President Dunson's project management team. On Thursday, so we're announcing the policy school-wide, or the decision, I guess, on Thursday. We were going to announce it tomorrow, but I think Malala will take all the news, so we wanted to make sure that we announce it deservedly, that we announce on the day that people will hear about it. And so the report is going to be sent to all of you tonight or tomorrow, probably tonight. I just have to send the email to the Senate. But I would appreciate it. It's semi-embargoed, so I mean, this is public, it's live stream, so there's no secret anymore, but we'd appreciate it if you didn't actively disseminate it, but if students are interested, share it to them, please. If you have friends in ROTC, you can let them know, that's absolutely fine. But the report will be public in addition to other information with the announcement on Thursday. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
Questions for the director?
Yes.
All right. So sorry to kind of take it away from ROTC.
No. Please.
But on Friday, the Department of Education officially put into policy
Yes.
the withdrawal of 2 Obama Dear Colleague letters that changed the changed policy on
Yes.
universities in Title IX. So can you say a little bit about that?
Absolutely. This is a good question. I like you a lot, Senator Zitzman. You guys should grill me way more often. I should be challenged. What if I didn't know? Like, what if my answer was like, oh, I didn't hear? You probably want to know that information, but luckily I do know. So, so yes. So Secretary DeVos, like you said, announced on Friday that they're rolling back the Obama era guidelines, the Dear Colleague letter. Not rolling back. They've eliminated them, removed them. I'll explain just like the like objective reality of the implications, and then I'll just explain briefly like my personal thought. That doesn't matter as much. So the immediate implications for AU are nothing. They removed the guidelines, and now we're in an interim phase. I'm not totally even sure that they know what that interim phase means, but whatever. And so basically that interim means that universities can use different guidelines. For example, our standard of evidence is the preponderance standard, meaning like it's essentially 50% plus change is the way I like to think about it. So if the university is able to decide at like a 51% determination that a student is guilty, that is the standard achieved needed in Title IX cases. That's not my opinion or position or whatever, that's just how it is. Under the new interim, for example, schools can now use that standard or clear and convincing, which is a harder level of proof to obtain. But again, emphasis is on can. Our policies that we have at AU through the Title IX office and the university are completely unchanged. Revoking doesn't have any implication on the policies right now. The federal or the Department of Education could, in the future, do something that would implicate the university because AU receives money from the federal government. So as a result, they do have some leverage over our policies, and they could say that we will lose federal funding if we don't do X, Y, and Z. But that hasn't happened yet. During the interim phase, the Department of Education is looking for or is entertaining a period of public comment during which they'll look for comments from all sides of the issue to inform their final set of policies that will be announced later, and which could be could have implications for AU. They could affect our policies. I think that that answers all of the questions. So again, no immediate implications for AU. We probably, like we said in our statement last week, will participate in that period of public comment. We have very strong opinions about which Title IX systems work best in terms of adjudication, so we'll participate. Whether or not we'll be listened to is another matter. I think that the two big takeaways are if friends have questions, if anyone you know has questions, let them know that our policies are completely unchanged. Let them know that their ability to access OASIS, the Counseling Center, Title IX, completely unchanged. It has no effect whatsoever. The student government in that case is still equally committed as we were on Thursday, now after Thursday with the announcement, to combating sexual assault. And another takeaway I would say is I just personally find it slightly troubling because I think decisions like this are very big and they have really big implications and wide-reaching impact. And so I don't like the fact that it was announced semi as a surprise. There was no sort of timeline. There was no we're going to do this. It'll be put into place later on in a couple of weeks. It was just an announcement, which I think is completely inappropriate. This is not something that you mess around with. Even if you want to change the system, fine. I think they should do it in a more professional way. So we'll keep you updated. We'll keep the student body updated on those changes. Thank you for the question.
Any other questions for Director Massaro? Senator Pintar?
Do we know, you may not know, but do we know if the Title IX changes will have any effect on what kind of funding female, women's sports get, women's women's programs?
Yes, that's a great question. So right now, no. The only things that have been changed are relating to Title IX. So the department repealed the it's called the Dear Colleague Letter, Obama's 2011 guidelines, and then they also repealed another set of guidelines that are Q&A style, so hypothetical questions that the government answers. That's the only two things that they've repealed Title IX related. Without being overly political, I think that might happen, but I don't know right now. Yeah. Another question?
Yes. When you said they took away one Q&A,
yeah.
They put up another one.
Yes.
And in it, that says that the standard of evidence.
I love this. Yeah. Thank you for the questions. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned how AU uses preponderance of evidence for sexual assault cases.
Yes.
The new guidelines say that the standard for sexual assault cases should be the same as for other misconduct cases. So can you tell us outside of sexual assault which standard of evidence is used?
Yes. So that is a very funny, in my opinion, and revealing sentence because it indicates how little those individuals understand universities in general. Because if their objective, I'll keep my answer short, but if their objective is to increase the standard, which that's what DeVos' objective is, you make that clear. Instead, she's assuming that the standard is higher elsewhere, that it's higher in conduct proceedings, it's higher in academic integrity, hoping that she's right in that wildly enormous assumption. That's not true at all. AU standard for preponderance of evidence is the same, or is applicable across the board. So all adjudication processes at the school are preponderance. Conduct, academic integrity, bias-related incidents, that's due conduct, but anything is preponderance. But yeah, thank you. So again, if this was mandated for AU, we could still be doing the exact same stuff we're doing right now, based on that language. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Sweet. We're gonna move on to old business, of which there is none, so we'll move on to public comment. Does any member of the public wish to speak at this time? Yeah, go ahead.
Should I speak from here?
Yeah, wherever you want.
Okay. Ask for as much time as I may consume.
Go for it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm Joyce DeSurs. I am in the class of 2021, and I'm speaking before the Senate today to make note of the fact that since former parliamentarian Brian O'Connor's resignation, there is not a parliamentarian. I do observe that there is currently a clerk, and I hope to make the case before the Senate that a parliamentarian is as important as other officers of the Senate, such as a clerk or a speaker. The goal of parliamentary procedure is to ensure that meetings run as efficiently as possible. The goal of a parliamentarian is to be, in essence, a meetings expert or an organizational expert. A parliamentarian is a crucial part of any private or public organization. And while for a private organization, a parliamentarian assists in the execution of very particular contractual obligations of the organization to its membership. In a public organization such as the Undergraduate Senate, a parliamentarian assists in the execution of contractual obligations from the public body to the public itself. The Senate cannot claim to be representative of the student body if it cannot abide by the institutions that it holds its accountability tied to. The Senate is ultimately inclined to lose that, what is the word? Lose that trust, the inherent efficacy, legitimacy, that's the word, that the public assumes the Senate to have sans that parliamentary procedure. Parliamentary procedure is vital to the proceedings of any organization, private or public, and in particular it is vital to a public organization because it is the very root of that public organization's legitimacy. The history of this begins with the House of Commons in the United Kingdom. Initially, and that's where parliamentary procedure as we know it today in both the East and the West developed. Initially parliamentary procedure legitimacy was derived through the king. The king granted the parliament its legitimacy. Fortunately, in a democracy, we have no king, nor do we have a queen. Instead, we have the democratically elected representatives of the people. But the public mandate cannot, through its own means, create some form of legitimacy in the Senate. That is to say, the public mandate is not itself an institution, but rather a grounds for an institution. That is, the public mandate must work through some institution so that the Senate may in turn deliver back to the public a mandate of legitimacy. That institution is parliamentary procedure. In the British House of Commons, this parliamentary procedure was initially developed through the Speaker himself, which is why today we observe that the Speaker is not challenged in the House of Commons. That is to say, the Speaker's ruling is final. However, that's developed over time such that the Speaker has been bound to parliamentary procedure. So a parliamentarian's job, in the case of the Undergraduate Senate and the Undergraduate Student Government's Constitution, the parliamentarian is effectively a judicial role. That is, the parliamentarian is tasked with ensuring the legitimacy of the Senate remains constant and remains consistently present. In the absence of a parliamentarian, the Senate cannot claim that legitimacy. And so I come before the Senate today to argue the absolute imperative necessity of the President's appointment of a parliamentarian. As a constituent of the Undergraduate Senate, I implore the Senate to in turn implore the President to appoint a parliamentarian. With elections coming up, it's going to be very important for new senators to understand the parliamentary procedures that govern a democratic system. And with that, in turn, I yield.
Sweet. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on to good of the order. Does anyone wish to speak? Senator Lixine.
I just want to, thank you for that. I just want to remind everybody that when a member of the public is speaking, you need to be close, like your computer needs to be closed, you need to be off your phones and being respectful to the person who came to speak. That's the rule of the Senate. Anyway, besides that, have a great week. I hope everyone's doing well. If you have any projects you need help with, I'm always here.
Cool. Senator Rogers by proxy.
Thanks. I'd like to thank Joyce for coming out today. When I resigned as a parliamentarian, I recommended Joyce to apply for the position. I got to know him very well through RHA, the phenomenal race that we had going on a couple weeks ago. And I feel like Joyce is, very well qualified for that position. So I just want to thank him for coming out today. And it's very brave of you to speak in front of the Senate as like a freshman. And I think you're very well qualified, and I hope to see your nomination hopefully go forward. So.
And I can say that Joyce has applied for parliamentarian, and Taylor is aware of that. And the application is up on the website, and there's no. And I relayed this information to you earlier this week that just because a nomination hasn't come up yet doesn't mean it isn't coming in the future. So just remember that, everyone. And then is any other good of the order? Oh, I actually have one more thing. So office hours policy went out this week. If you want to have roaming office hours, do roaming office hours and hit me up with that information. Also, I appointed a Senate communications manager, and he's super awesome. But unfortunately, he had a death in the family this week, so he is taking care of that.
What's his name?
His name is Brian Fu.
Nice.
He's a freshman. He's super awesome and super enthusiastic.
Sweet.
Okay, anybody else for good of the order? Okay, sweet. We see no further business. This meeting is adjourned. Yay. So proud.
Nice. Thank you guys for coming as well. So, under emails.